If you ask 10 random people who the greatest pitcher of all time is, you'd probably get around 7 or 8 different players named. It's a question that comes without a correct answer because it's so hard to really compare pitchers due to a variety of reasons. In this video, there'll be 7 pitchers covered that have a serious case to be crowned as the GOAT pitcher. They'll be ranked through a set of 4 different criteria. Before we get to the 7 guys, there are 2 honorable mentions and 1 player to note. Bob Gibson just misses the list, as well as Walter Johnson. 2 undoubtedly top 10 pitchers of all time, but they just missed the cut here. And also a mention to Nolan Ryan. He has the counting stats and all the cool achievements, but respectfully, he's not on the level of the 7 guys in this video. A career ERA plus of 112 is not GOAT worthy, no matter the reasons for it being 112. You could definitely argue that he deserved a Cy Young in the 1970s, but the fact is that he never won one. If you look at his year-by-year stats, they're extremely inconsistent, and it's hard to even pinpoint a peak for him. A pitcher doesn't have a GOAT case if you can't pinpoint an extended stretch of him being at very minimum a top 3 pitcher in baseball, if not the best. Nolan is an all-time great and an icon of the game, don't get it twisted, but he doesn't have a place in this video. Sandy Koufax is considered by many to be the greatest left-handed pitcher of all time. On this list, he comes in at 7 overall and is the 3rd lefty. At his peak, he has an argument for the best ever. From 1961 to 1966, he racked up 46 wins above replacement, 15 more than the next best, which is absolutely ridiculous. He posted a 2.19 ERA and a 2.19 FIP across 6 full seasons. Sandy was also a strikeout pitcher before it became cool, leading the MLB in strikeout rate at 26% during this span. He won an MVP, 3 Cy Youngs, a Triple Crown, and 5 ERA titles, 4 World Series, and 2 World Series MVP. Sandy's GOAT moment came in his 14 strikeout perfect game against the Cubs in 1965. Most of us know where the downfall is with him, and its longevity. He went out on top, retiring at just age 30, leaving a lot to be desired when it comes to crowning him as the GOAT. If you're arguing that peak for peak he's the greatest of all time, that could be understandable. But to call someone the greatest, they need more than just 6 seasons of real production, and that's what ultimately holds Sandy back from being closer to the top of this list. Tom Seaver was initially going to be an honorable mention, but after looking over his resume, it's just way too good to not have on here. Seaver was the best pitcher in baseball across a 7-year stretch from 1969 to 1975. You really don't see a stretch of dominance that long very often. Across that span, he averaged 274 innings per season and pitched to a 2.46 ERA and a 1.46 ERA+. He took home 3 Cy Youngs in this period. Undoubtedly an elite peak, but not on par with some of the peaks we'll see later on in this video, and it's a big reason why he isn't any higher. However, Seaver's longevity is a very underrated aspect of his resume. As previously stated, he won 3 Cy Youngs and was the best pitcher in baseball throughout his 20s. But he was also able to sustain very good seasons throughout his 30s and even into his 40s. In 1978, he was an All-Star. In 1979, he was 4th in Cy Young voting, and in 1981, at age 36, he finished 2nd in Cy Young voting. Seaver posted a career 2.86 ERA, 3.04 FIP, and a 1.27 ERA+ in almost 4,800 innings pitched, and ranks 11th all-time in pitcher F4. A 12-time All-Star, 3-time Cy Young winner, along with the Rookie of the Year, give him a nice set of accolades, and his GOAT moment has to be his 10-inning, 1-run performance in Game 4 of the World Series, in which he basically sealed the Mets' World Series victory. Tom Seaver is one of the most underrated pitchers of all time, and he comes in at the 6th spot, which is probably much higher than most lists would have him. Clayton Kershaw is a pretty polarizing figure when it comes to his all-time ranking. Some may hold his playoff struggles against him and have him much lower than this, but some may credit him for being by far the best pitcher on earth in the most skilled era of baseball history. Kershaw is a 3-time Cy Young winner, Triple Crown winner, MVP, and 10-time All-Star at the age of 35. He also comes in with the highest career ERA+ of all time. Now that obviously has an asterisk next to it because he's still playing and there's a chance that drops as he heads into his late 30s. But he's shown no real signs of slowing his production down on a rate basis, as he's posted a 2.35 ERA across 2022 and 2023. His longevity is a subjective case, as he's been still performing at a very high level but on limited innings, as he's just averaged 145 innings pitched per season since age 31. At his peak, he was pretty much the best pitcher in baseball every year for a 6-year stretch. He put up a 2.06 ERA and a 2.26 FIP from 2011 to 2016, with 3 sub-2 ERA seasons. An absolutely ridiculous stretch, taking home 3 Cy Youngs in 4 years, and it should have been 4 if the voters weren't so fascinated with R.A. Dickey's knuckleball, but that's a topic for another future video. Kershaw's GOAT moment came in his 15 strikeout no-hitter back in 2014. What should have been a perfect game was ruined by a Hanley Ramirez error, but either way, it was a career-defining performance for arguably the greatest lefty of all time. His ranking is not set in stone yet though. As previously stated, he's still pitching at an extremely high level, and if he can keep it up into his final years, he has a chance to move up on the list, and maybe even solidify himself as the greatest lefty of all time. If you want to talk about dominating an era, look no further than Greg Maddox. He was the pitcher of the 90s, totaling almost 70 wins above replacement in a 10-year span, along with 4 straight Cy Young awards. Across his career, he posted a 3.16 ERA and a 1.32 ERA+, and ranks 3rd all-time in F4. Peak for peak, he can match up with anyone. From 92 to 98, he posted a 2.15 ERA and a 1.90 ERA+. It's unfathomable to even think of, especially considering the fact that a few of those years came at the beginning of the steroid era. Maddox pitched for 23 years and was above average in terms of ERA+ in 19 of them. If that doesn't speak to his longevity, I don't know what does. He has quite a few options as a GOAT moment, like his complete game 2-hit shutout in the World Series. But there's not a moment that defines Maddox as a pitcher more than his 77, not 76, pitch shutout in 1997, where 83% of his pitches were strikes. The argument could definitely be made for him being the greatest, but he falls just short at the 4th spot on this list. You can't have a GOAT pitcher debate and not include Randy Johnson in it. He's maybe the most powerful force of nature the game has ever seen, standing at 6'10 and reaching triple digits on his fastball. I mean, just ask this poor bird about it. Unlike all the other pitchers here, Randy took quite a while to figure it out. By the time he received his first Cy Young vote at age 29, Kershaw had already taken home 3 Cy Young awards and an MVP at the same point in his career. But Randy really made up for lost time in his 30s. You could argue that the length of his peak should be longer, but this 4-year stretch from 1999 to 2002 was him at his absolute best. He took home 4 straight NL Cy Youngs, posting a 2.48 ERA and a 2.53 FIP. He also averages a ridiculous 354 strikeouts per season across this stretch, topping out at 372, which ranks the second most in the modern era. All this was done at the peak of the steroid era as well. Overall, Randy took home 5 Cy Youngs, a World Series MVP, and a Triple Crown in his career. His final numbers are extremely impressive as well, considering the fact that he played well into his 40s, retiring at age 45. If you think Randy's the greatest pitcher of all time, that's completely respectable, but we'll have to settle for the title of the greatest lefty of all time in this video. When it comes to accolades, there's no pitcher that really comes close to Roger Clemens. He's a 7-time Cy Young winner, 2-time Triple Crown winner, and has an MVP to his name. Not to mention 11 All-Star appearances, 7 ERA titles, and 2 World Series titles. At age 23, he took home his first Cy Young, and then 18 years later, at age 41, he took home another. At age 42, he posted a 1.87 ERA across 211 innings as well. He's number 1 all-time in pitcher F4, along with a 1.43 ERA plus across almost 5,000 innings pitched. So what would hold him back from the top spot? The peak is the most heavily weighted aspect of this valuation, and while Clemens' peak is still all-time great, it's just not on the level of some of the guys here, like Kershaw, Maddox, Randy, and the guy who has the top spot. Some may also bring up the steroid situation, which is understandable, but here's the counter to that. Steroid testing wasn't exactly required during this time, and the MLB was looking the other way to it as well. Also, almost the entire league was on them. So caring about him using is really a subjective decision in the Clemens case. Roger's GOAT moment has to be him taking home the Cy Young at age 41. You just don't see pitchers make it past 35 anymore, and this dude was arguably the best pitcher in baseball at age 41. His insane set of accolades and unheard of longevity is enough to prop him up here as the second greatest pitcher of all time. We've talked about some legendary peaks in this video. Koufax dominated the 60s, Maddox was the king of the 90s, and Randy Johnson was maybe the most powerful force of nature the game has ever seen on the mound. But it was a 5'11", 170-pound pitcher who dominated hitters in a way no other pitcher has been able to replicate. From 97 to 2003, Pedro Martinez was the best pitcher on the planet and the most dominant pitcher in MLB history. At the height of the steroid era, Pedro pitched to a 2.2 ERA, 2.16 FIP, and a 2.13 ERA plus across a 7-year span. To put that into perspective, since he retired in 2009, there have only been 6 occurrences in which a pitcher has finished a season with an ERA plus over 200. Pedro alone averaged it for 7 years. He also pitched to the single greatest ERA plus season in MLB history in 2000. His 1.74 ERA that season was the best in the American League. Not by a little, and not by even a lot, by a landslide. The next closest pitcher was Roger Clemens, all the way down at 3.70. That's what his 2.90 ERA plus is encapsulating into one number. He was 190% better than a league average American League pitcher that year. Pedro was a 3-time Cy Young winner, 8-time All-Star, Triple Crown winner, and won 5 ERA titles. And the cherry on top is the second highest ERA plus of all time, with the possibility of being number 1 in the future, depending on how the rest of Kershaw's days go. Pedro's GOAT moment comes in Game 5 of the 1999 ALDS, where he came in and shut the door on one of the most prolific lineups ever, with 6 no-hit innings to send the Red Sox to the ALCS. Peak for peak, he's the greatest ever, and unlike Koufax, he does have a strong resume outside of his 7-year stretch. He pitched in 18 seasons and was above average to elite in 13 of them. Every pitcher named on this list has an argument, but Pedro is the one with the strongest because at his best, there was nobody better, which is why Pedro Martinez is the greatest pitcher of all time.
So how exactly does remote coaching work? You will have unlimited access to text and email your coach, hop on weekly FaceTime calls, and receive regular mechanical and training updates. Each day, your plan will detail exactly what to do from start to finish, with instructional videos for every single throwing drill, mobility routine, and lifting exercise. Nobody's going to do the work for you, but we can show you the path to get there. It's your career. Let's get to work.
¡Vamos!